my Uncle Frank, man.
So hard. Oh yeah, a while ago.
Oh, I forgot about that picture. Yeah, that creeped me out.
You tried to forget about that picture.
Yeah, I did. Didn't know it's back.
Yeah, Dave looked at him.
Wait, can you text her? Yes.
No.
But that's different. We'll
A
find
little
it.
easier to get up here. There's not much thought in that question.
That's probably like the
2 minutes.
Yeah. No, so like Josh is probably on
So
course.
just a couple, and those are for 2 boys.
How are your kids doing? Going down fine?
I think we did, yes.
Grandkids get pretty big?
My sister. I guess as we age.
Carl weighted the things a little bit, huh? Poor guy. God. Right? Everyone's going to state school, huh? Yeah, I remember when the 6th happened. We're all like, how does that even possible? The 7th happened, like, what do you do? What do you do by a suburban just so you can get everybody in the road trip? These kids get like church bands. Yeah, she would have been 97. Yeah, so so she was dealing with she was having illness. She was
I'll join you in the middle.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Nice. See how my geography is not so great anymore. Got rid of all like. Yeah, I'm always surprised how easily my dad takes it back. Yeah, we all see. Meaning from Illinois, like so, because we were, I've been living in New Hampshire 6 years when I got my license, and then, I It was about 11. It's a little quicker on the way back. Unfortunately, I came into town and it's like 10 after 10 in Russia. Yeah, I've seen No, you're okay. Yeah, you're good. Yeah, so actually, right where we're setting up right now, my grandfather's. Yeah. Sorry, but my God. I didn't catch
Ever since the days when they sold their places. Okay, we'll sit here. You have a nice day. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could please have your attention at this time. I'd like to kindly remind you to silence your cell phones at this time and to not disrupt the service for the entirety of the service, please. And today we're all gathered here to honor the life of Kahn. Officiating today, our services here today is Rabbi Doug Zeltman. Service begins with the recitation of the 23rd Psalm, as I just cited in Hebrew. If you'd like to join me in the 23rd Psalm in English, on the inside cover of your folders is the 23rd Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He made me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restored my soul. He guided me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod now with Psalm 121. Shir lamalo sesa einai el hahari me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Adonai Yoshishamayim v'aretz Yitain lamo reglach hayanim shomrecha Hinei lo yanum lo yishan shomer Yisrael Adonai shomrecha Adonai tzil chayad yaminecha Yom HaMashem she'akacha v'yaret v'layla Adonai yishmarcha b'koro yishmar es nafshecha Adonai yishmar tzeis g'voacha mi'atav yad olam. I will lift mine eyes unto the mountains. What is the source of my help? The source of my help is the Lord, creator of heaven and earth. He will not let you falter. Your guardian does not slumber. Surely the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. He is at your right hand to protect you. The Lord your keeper gives shelter. The sun will not smite you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will guard you from all harm. The Lord will preserve your soul. He will guard your going and coming from this time forth and forevermore. Dear friends, we come together today in sadness to say goodbye and pay our final respects to Kahn of blessed memory, who's gone to eternal home. We pray that God will remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that she performed in the land of the living, and their soul will be bound up in the bond of eternal life. I want to extend my most sincere condolences today to Jane, wife Cheryl, and to Gary, the children, to the grandchildren, to David, Denise, and husband Mike, to Michael, and to the great-grandchildren, Joshua and Andrew. I know our grandson Brett and wife Monica, also, and their children, the great-grandchildren, to Astrid, and to Daryl, blessed memory's wife Simona, and great-grandchild Isabella. And I pray that each of you should find comfort in knowing that Lee is receiving the reward due to the faithful, now reunited with those who have gone before her. And we'll talk a little bit about that, but I want to say that what a great legacy children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, that what she has left will be passed on door by door from generation to generation. And her legacy will live on long after she's with us physically. I want to share some words, and we do this always when we say goodbye to a loved one. We call this in Hebrew a hesped, in English loosely a eulogy. When we talk about our loved one as we say goodbye, why do we do this? There are a few reasons. First of all, we know and we believe that Lee is with us right now. We want her to know just a little bit, as we have a few minutes here today, how much she was loved, admired, and will be missed. Number two, maybe somebody who's with us in person or online in New Hampshire or wherever they might be will find out something about Lee that they didn't know, something wonderful about this wonderful lady. And finally, and most importantly, God is with us right now. And even though God knows everything, we want to bring some of those attributes to the forefront, as she's now receiving the reward due to the faithful. Leah Bat Yosef was 96 years in this world with us, Kanai Nahara, but not long enough. Her yortzeit will always be observed on the 18th day of the Hebrew month of Av, 9 days after the Tisha B'Av fast, which is the saddest day on the Jewish calendar. She was recently living at the Mather in Evanston. She was born on October 20. It's okay.
I think maybe she's calling.
We're all here. We're all here.
My mother used to tell me the truth.
Thanks, Mom.
She's living with us. She was born on October 26th of 1926 to Joseph, right? 1927. Oh,
Not 19 October.
October 26th of 1927? October 27th of 1926. All right. I just got the date, your brother told me that date, so. So. Okay.
He knows how to correct me whenever I'm.
I wasn't there, but October 27th of 1926, I am told now, to Joseph and Rose, Cologne, Germany. Everybody has heard of that place, and that's where she's from. Her life changed dramatically under Nazi Germany. She was forbidden from attending public school at 8 years old. She was forced to transfer to a different school, an only Jewish school, which in our places and ages is a good thing. In those days, it was a punishment. It was miles from her home. She had to take public transportation. Her father struggled to try and get out of the country and emigrate. First to Paraguay, but by chance received U.S. visas for himself and family in 1939. They came in through Ellis Island in January of 1940 and came by train to Chicago to join their sponsoring family, the Hymans. A haberdasher and a seamstress by trade in Germany, her parents opened Rose hat shops on the north side of Chicago. She attended Schurz High School and then graduated from Senn High School on the north side. Following high school, she volunteered for the USO and sold war bonds. She also attended Wright Junior College. She went to post-war Jewish group events and social events where she and her late beloved husband Carl met and were together until 1983. As long-time members of Temple Ezra, which became Congregation Ezra, which became Ezra Haboni, Mantua Avenue, and then split, and the majority of the group are at Niles Township Jewish Congregation, Ezra Haboni, the Niles Township Jewish Congregation, on Dempster and Skokie. She helped form the Mr. and Mrs. Club. She gained lifelong friends. From that group of people, it's a very tiny little button. Their early married years they spent on Chicago's north side in Andersonville. In a building owned by Carl and Lee across from Pierce School. She was an endearing, loving mother to Jane Gary. Devoted to her children. They were with her for the days before her passing, as well as by her bedside at the very end. So if I can stop there for a moment, I want to tell a story because this idea that children come in when they're far away and they're there with mom to the very end, and when they're close or far, and she knows that her family loves her so much. There's a story I heard when I was about 16 years old from Rabbi Jay Carson, who was my rabbi growing up, who now lives in Israel. He's 88 years old. I just talked to him this week because my daughter got married, and he called me to wish us a mazel tov. And he told the story, and I never forget it. And sometimes it just comes to my mind when I'm sharing words that a family shares with me. And the story goes like this. When someone in the family gets pregnant, there's excitement for a new baby in the family. When she reaches the 9th month, we start counting down the days to the due date. When she goes into labor, usually we call the doctor first and then usually go to the hospital. And then when we get to the hospital, we pick up the telephone again from there. We start calling the immediate family members, grandparents, sisters and brothers, best friends. The baby is coming, the baby is coming. And before the pandemic, this was so true. Everybody wants to come to the hospital and see that new baby. Everybody remember those nurseries with the windows, right? So I'm sure many people here, most people here have been in a delivery room when a baby's born. What's the first thing a baby does when a baby's born? Cries. What's everybody else doing? They're smiling from ear to ear over that new life, that simcha. Isn't it ironic yet beautiful? When God comes to us and tells us that it's our time, he does this with everyone. He gives every single person a lucid moment, a moment of realization, no matter what their condition. And at that time we realize that those that love us and care about us have been there, right there for us, giving their love and sharing their care to the very end. And then the Sharei Shamayim, the gates of heaven open up. And there are those who have gone before us. There was Carl, there was Daryl, there were grandparents, everyone there waiting. Parents, everyone who's gone before us. So, when that moment comes and we realize that those that love us and care about us have been surrounding us with that love all the way to the very end, and then we're about to be reunited with those we've been separated from, how can we do anything but go except with a smile on our faces? Yet what is everybody else doing at that time? Right. That's the full circle of life we all experience. And that's why we're here today. Part of this life cycle that we all go through, because none of us are here forever, is sharing together those simchas and those sad occasions, and keeping those memories alive, and taking those traditions that were passed down to us and passing them down the door by door from generation to generation. And leave will live on within each of you and your family. So that came to mind, but as I continued, they grew up in Chicago and then Lincolnwood, and they made sure that her kids were active in sports, camps, and the JCC and activities. She worked hard in her life. She was great at retail sales and phone solicitation sales. She was a small, sweet, very attractive lady. She could carry on a conversation with anyone. As a salesperson at downtown, Bon would tell her women's clothes. In the department for women, she built a clientele that included people like Oprah Winfrey, Michael Jordan's wife, late Mayor Jane Byrne, and Jesse Jackson's wife. Following Carl's passing, they relocated to Hallandale, Florida for 27 years. She loved to walk along Hollywood Beach. She danced, she volunteered for the animal shelter, always kept busy, and she loved dogs. She was great at playing bridge. And where she excelled, though, was earning master's points for her tournament play. With her partner of 20 years, David Wittenstein, she also enjoyed traveling around the world. In 2013, when David passed away, they moved back to Chicagoland area and into the Mather in Evanston, as I mentioned, which is a great senior community. When they first opened, I was the rabbi there for a number of years. And then my dear retired friend, Rabbi Bronstein, moved in and he took over. Still there today. She was a close reach now to Gary because she was back in town. She was also in close reach to family and friends who were in town. And more people there who loved to play bridge. She loved the Mathers weekly bridge playing competition, being part of that. And the staff loved her. She was there for 10 years. She persevered through a variety of medical challenges and had great assistance from the staff at the Mather. She was strongly independent throughout her life. They worked with her there to sustain an active life these last 10 years. She is loved by her grandchildren. They would visit her in Florida and in Evanston and share FaceTime chats with her. She touched so many people's lives in her amazing 96 years on this earth. We should all accomplish what she accomplished and live as long as she did to see those accomplishments. She was someone, if you met her, you would never forget her. And we pray that her name will always be remembered for a blessing. Amen. I thank you for sharing all these beautiful things about Lee, and I know her children are going to share some words with us, and maybe some others too, but we're going to give the family a chance to come forward and speak if you'll give them your attention at this time.
I'm Brother Jay with Gary. We shared final moments with my mom. It was a blessing to be together, and I know that she felt the same. Thank you, Rabbi Zeldin, for your leadership in the service. I wish I had a rabbi named Jay Carson. He must have been a funny guy. I'll say that one of the last things that I did at my mom's side was to grab her hand after playing the Shabbat service for my local synagogue in Keene, New Hampshire, and said, Mom, if it's, I've thought about this for myself, and my last thought would be to say the Shema. I knew that was a mistake, but I did it anyway. I'm sorry to recite that story, but we said the Shema. It is, here I am, my Lord, my God. The Lord is one. She passed very quickly after that. Hey, I got some more formal remarks, and it was fun to write the obituary of Gary. And it is temporal, it is in a time sequence, as is most of what I'm about to say. Hopefully I'm not redundant and it goes a little deeper. I think the way that most of us remember Lady Kahn is that she was an elegant woman. Whatever time it took to get that look. Her hazel green eyes and her blonde hair, sleek, petite figure, high heel shoes, and a low neck sweater, and just enough jewelry. She was a beautiful woman. The Germany early years of her life, it was traumatic for her. Losing her school friends at an early age of 8, with her parents working very long hours, she was often alone and reflected on that. And then losing her aunts and uncles, but her aunts who she felt very close to, who all perished in the Holocaust. We have photos of some of her best childhood memories of picnicking along the Rhine River. And those aunts and uncles, they all perished in the Holocaust. Joseph, Rose, and Lee were sponsored in America, oddly, because they had one child. And for the sponsoring family, that would require a smaller financial commitment. And from the loss of friends and family came a fear of being alone. The fear of being alone. And she'd get agitated talking about it. She did not want to leave those memories with others. In her final couple of years, she'd say, "Who's left?" So our parents, Carl and Lee, they were two Holocaust survivors. They had that in common. Dad's loss was of a family business of promising economic status and security. Mom's loss was more traumatic. It was the loss of place. So independence and looking out for herself was something she learned from a very early age. And while independence was life-saving, confidence was not an easy thing to learn, but she did it in very small steps. One of the greatest comforts of her life was our gang. The Blums, Dorns, Shecklins, and Sternfelds, and God bless you guys for being here with us. They were always together with Gary and me in our youth, and until death did they part. Mom loved our gang kids. That's what we called ourselves. And as well, she got such a kick out of your phone calls and your visits. It was cherished by her and by Gary and me. When our family moved to Lincolnwood in the 1960s, it was such an important milestone for my mom. It was her place, finally. And she worked for it hard, as did our dad. It was their middle-class dream. And it had her trademark on it all over it. Simple but elegant. In the neighborhood, she found American-born friends in addition to her high school friends, Ruthie, Joan, and Sybil, and in addition to her European-born friends. Her golden years were in Florida. She loved the warmth. Everyone she befriended came from somewhere else, so making friends was easier. And after 18 years without her family nearby, she found Cheryl in an apartment almost directly above her, which we bought sight unseen on her recommendation. Deep breath. It was indeed a great unit. It had 2 bedrooms. It had a balcony overlooking the coastline of Florida from Fort Lauderdale to the Sunset Beach. Cheryl remembers the Hemisphere apartment best for those 10 years when we walked up and down the fire escape stairway visiting each other. Often those visits included a happy hour in our apartment before going to the best deal restaurants along the East Coast. On Tuesday, Wednesday, you get it. For breakfast, she'd make sausage and eggs, a German tradition. Apple pancakes with cinnamon and sugar, wow, that'd be great. And in a kitchen that drove Gary absolutely crazy. It was tough. And remembering those times today, Denise posted on Facebook, our daughter, today we say goodbye to my grandma Lee Kahn. She was a fashionable, feisty, independent woman who I believe lived to be 96 out of sheer determination to never be an old lady. I will remember her loving walks on the beach, thrift store shopping, and dominating a bridge game. She loved bagel spreads in the morning, happy hours in the evening, and midweek discount cruises. She worked for discounts. For a petite, soft-spoken woman, her presence was large in our lives, and it's hard to believe she's gone. I hope her heaven is filled with all these favorite things, and that Grandpa Carl, Daryl, and her poodles. Cookie and candy are there to greet her. Dave remembers as a teenager visiting Florida, walking behind Mom on the beach, or walking in front of her, so he didn't have to witness her with a plastic bag over her hair so the wind wouldn't disturb it for the evening dinner. He was fastidious. As Denise said, Lee was determined. And as she would say, I'm not stubborn. But she might have been splitting hairs. Mom was determined. And she would never give up on a thought like getting the right gift at the right time, at the right price, even if it caused her to be late. Some of us might have said 2 out of 3 ain't bad. She accused me of being a bad shopper because I get impatient, and I probably was. As our dad, Carl, would say to Mom, "We're going to be late." He'd shout up just 6 steps to the second floor bathroom. And Lee would reply, "I'm almost ready." And so that sequence would repeat itself a couple more times, and it was like watching the Desi and Lucy show. When ready, Mom always looked attractive. She dressed and composed herself and was always fashionable. She'd say, "Make the best of what you have," and she did. Her clothing came from secondhand resale shops. She knew the labels from having worked at Bonwood Teller for many years. And she excelled at retail sales with an earned clientele of who's who in Chicago. Leaving Florida in 2014 and moving to the Manor was a tough transition for her. As sudden as it was, the move came at just the right time and probably extended her lifetime, with Gary nearby connecting her with his friends, with her gang of friends moving back from Florida as well, and making new friends in the building through Bridge and being gentle in her requests with the caring Mathers staff. Mom became a loving part of that family. But her mobility was limited. She hated being dependent on others. But she was accepted and greatly appreciated for all, and she accepted the help and greatly appreciated all that she received. And I'd be remiss if I failed to acknowledge Mom's influence on my political life. I'll miss talking with her almost daily about how it's going on rides back from the state capitol. The frustrations of being in a minority party in the state senate and the battles for running and becoming a majority party, and the victories we won on education and social and economic issues. One of the most poignant memories of my mom is talking with her after Martin Luther King's passing. The police were suppressing city riots across the country. And I said something like, "A police state would never happen here in the United States." And her reply was, "Don't be so sure." And from 2017 onward, that interaction remains on my mind like a billboard I drive by daily. I joked at the beginning of my announcement for running for mayor on Monday evening that while I'm saddened, my mom's death was not a tragedy. She lived to nearly 97 years. And that day I posted an announcement of her funeral arrangements on my Facebook page. And her passing has been one of the biggest attention-getting posts I've ever posted. And I said, "Thank you, Mom, one more time for her timing and her social boost." She didn't want me to come visit, knowing that my campaign required some attention. "I'll be better. I have to get better." And she'd overcome so many physical obstacles, but her health was continuing to get more complicated, and I didn't want the possibility of her passing without having another visit, and I knew that she'd enjoy seeing Gary and me together in her final 3 days. I didn't know 3 days. She'd enjoy Gary and me together with her. The Mathers staff also knew she was getting weaker, and they kept coming in, sharing their love and comfort. Thank you so much, Mathers staff. As many of you said in our your online posts, may her passing be a blessing and be comforted by her long life. Mom in her last year said, I'm like an old car, the parts are wearing out, and we all have to die sometime. Her life inspired my active support for developing the Cohen Center for Holocaust and Genocide Studies at Keene State College with an army of people who shared like thoughts about the importance of that creation and expansion of that center. In 2003, Mom and David, they attended the center's 20th anniversary celebration. Gary's participated in a tour of death camps in 2010, and she supported the needs of the center. And that's why we've suggested a good way to remember Mom is making a contribution to the Cohen Center, and that detail is in her obituary. And there's another way to remember Mom. Plants were to Mom like pets. She didn't go so far as naming them, but her favorite plant is a coleus. She loved coleus plants. They're the multicolored leaves. They're green on the outside, dark in the center, in the next layer, and further in there's this splash of radiant pink. So if you want to remember Lee, think of her when you plant another coleus in your garden. I can't wait to hear Gary's comments. And I want to thank the Mitzvah funeral services for their conducting of this service, for their support during this time for Gary and me. Thank you all so much for the love you shared with our mom and with us since her passing. We are forever grateful for your remembrances.
My brother Jay is an amazing outcome of, as he said, two people who didn't have the best of circumstances in their life. War is about the most important part of humanity that needs to be avoided, and we never put a label to that emotion, but we are so glad to have avoided it in our lives. I'm here and I see this beautiful gathering. Oh, I see. I was very fortunate to be able to greet people as they came in, and I see more people have come, and I know the connection of everybody with Lee. And not only Lee, with Lee's parents, with my father Carl, is the son of a pallbearer from my dad's funeral here at New Light Cemetery. The consistency of beauty of the people that are connected is beyond my ability to describe it. And I always felt that my parents' friends were our friends with Jay, and Jay learned that because Jay shared many friends with me. As I was growing up, we were 18 months apart in age. And my mom, I don't know why she treated us sometimes similarly, the same outfit. And if not the same outfit, I got some of his clothes as they were handed down to me, which was great. I always felt honored when I received something that Jay had worn. But Lee did not have this event on her agenda, you know, so she couldn't join us. And I see some bridge friends of hers. I mean, I know she's late for bridge today, and I know you're not obviously not having a game, so maybe she isn't late. But at any rate, Lee was very special. Jay said so many wonderful things. I can't add to it, but I will tell you a few little things that came up. Even 3 weeks ago, I was ready to travel. I wanted to get up sooner. I knew my mom wasn't doing well, and it just wasn't in the cards. And she was so looking forward. And she always said, "I love it when you and Jay are together." And Jay knew my itinerary, and he said, a week ago Friday, he said, "You know, what are your plans when you're coming in?" I said, "I'm gonna come in too." And when I came and greeted my mom last week on Sunday morning and whatever, I didn't mention that Jay was coming in, but somehow she learned within the day that Jay was coming in. "When did you learn about it, Gary?" I wasn't always so good about keeping secrets, but this, you know, there's some important ones, and Jay did have impeccable timing, as his quality that we recognize. But 3 weeks ago, before I came in, my mom said to me, "You know, Gary, you know that retin A that I'm running low on retin A," and you know, for those of you who don't know what retin A is, it's you know, wrinkle cream to, you know, help you, you know, look as best as you can. Says, "I need some more retin A. It's good. It's good for my wrinkles. I don't want them." Okay. So at any rate, I brought it in. I have it's unused. If anyone has really good, mom would be very happy to recycle it. I know that.
Someone is.
But on behalf of my mom, I was going to say this at the end. I'm just so thrilled to see this gathering, because Mom was always afraid. You know, she saw people and she knew of people in her life who didn't have the luxury of gatherings of people close to them. It was not allowed by the politics of the time and the treatment of people at that time. So we are certainly blessed to be together here, and those people who are here in spirit, those people who are watching on the stream, thank you. I'm going to step back in time a little. Jay alluded to this, and I was drawn into my parents' stories, and there was something in our parents that was a pain that they did suppress. And I did not see them shed tears, but I knew the pain was there and that they had shed tears internally for years. Lee went through many changes in her life, and she was born Lisa Lotta Homburg. And the way they pronounced it in the Rhineland, Lisa Lotta Homberg. And Lisa Lotta was a very fashionable name, and they grew up in a very vibrant part of Cologne, Köln-Nippes. And it was post-World War I Germany. They were now not occupied as of 1926 by the British. And life was becoming good for her parents, who had left their small towns in provincial Germany. Lee, as Jay said, enjoyed walks in the park. She enjoyed her parents, her cousins, her friends, her aunts, uncles. She enjoyed school. And she enjoyed her birthday parties. And one of the pictures that may not appear here is one of my mother wearing birthday garb and a birthday hat, celebratory hat, and there she was, happy. And she remembered that birthday very vividly, because she would remark to Jay and I went back to school the following year, and I was told one day, the teacher said to me, "You know, it's been very nice having you in our class, but you're not coming back to school on Monday." And those children who she partied with at her previous birthday party were not allowed to party with her any longer, but they were permitted to call her names and throw stones. This affected Lee greatly, because from pleasantness to unpleasantness was a very abrupt change. The politics of the day affected her family greatly through loss of income. And my grandmother Rosa Homburg, was a milliner and well-known, well-respected. She was known to make the finest, most beautiful hats in Cologne, but no longer could she have customers. 7 years later, after the politics had changed, the politics got worse, and Lee fled her country, but not some of her traditions, not her love of the carnival music from the Rhineland, not her love of opera, of Lehar, Strauss, and other composers. In 1940, she arrived, and it was in Grace School. As a matter of fact, there are people here from Grace School. There's people from every part of her life that are reflected right here in this room, and I know who everybody is. So if you hear something that I mentioned, I hope it strikes a familiar chord. Lee went to school, but she did not speak a word of English. So they put her in she was put in fourth grade at the age of 13, and the classroom seats didn't accommodate her. She was too large for them. They're very uncomfortable. She was determined, as Jay said, to move on, to move forward, which she did. She graduated only 1 year behind her other contemporaries, and she was introduced to American culture by her two cousins, Jean and Joan Eisman. And it was a really good, wonderful, long-lasting love between these distant cousins and my mom until they parted. Lee was Liesel in high school. She went from Lieselotte to Liesel. People couldn't say her name. They mispronounced it. It was not good. And she was ready for a new era in her life. Mom needed to be in gatherings, which is why she sold war bonds. She got to go to Fort Sheridan with cousin Jean, and they would travel and they socialized. And at one Yom Kippur dance in Chicago, a gentleman came by who she had met previously, telling off-color jokes at a young refugee gathering, and it was my dad Carl, and he remembered her, and she was so impressed that not only did my father remember her, he knew her parents' names, and she felt very welcome in his presence. It took a year of courting and a year of my mom trying to get away, including going to Wisconsin, where she went to another party, and she thought, well, maybe I'll meet somebody else besides Carl. So after that dance, she met all kinds of people, and everybody just said, oh, aren't you Carl Kahn's girlfriend? I'm Henry Kahn. I'm Ludwig Kahn. All the Kahns of Milwaukee ran into her, and she was trapped. So, but at any rate, I think, so when they got married, it was the end of the line for my grandfather, Julius. He was ill, his eyesight failed, but he was lucky to be here in the States. And my mom learned how to please my dad with food. And she learned cooking from Grandma Frida. And Frida taught her the wonderful things of potted foods, green kern zuppa, pot roast, potatoes, boiled sausage, and potato salad, and herring salad. All of which I still enjoy cooking today, because while Jay was out playing as a young boy and learning how to play baseball and really getting to be a good athlete, I stayed home and I went to the pantry and helped my mom with getting all kinds of things, and that's how I learned to cook, was actually by being around Mom, and I loved it. Mom was a great friend, and so was Jay. We shared a room together, and it was kind of interesting. Mom would come in, she'd take the pillow and fluff it up. I'm gonna fluff your pillow before you go to sleep. It'd be nice and cushy. We put our heads down, and she said, oh, by the way, we have to pray. And it was kind of interesting as we went to her first years were in Lutheran schools. When she taught us to pray, she said, do it like this. We have since learned that's not the, well, that's not, it's, some of it doesn't have to be our way, but anyway. Mom was great with making us go to summer camp. I don't care how hot it got, I didn't like summer camp at Greenbrier, River Park, Lincolnwood Park. Lincolnwood, though, she loved it, but she made us sardine sandwiches, and when we used to take sardine sandwiches, we used to carry them in these little, plastic things, and they would get so hot by the middle of the day, and then you'd open up this plastic container, you'd either have tuna fish, egg salad, sardine sandwiches, and you opened it up, and everybody knew what you were eating. It was something they didn't want. And nobody would change sandwiches with us, right? We were stuck with what Mom made. Mom had some strange habits. She really liked ketchup, so if she would make hot dogs, she didn't pull out the mustard, it was ketchup. She would actually cook liver and beef liver and make us sandwiches of beef liver and ketchup. All right, Mom used us for bridge partners. 1965, Frida Arst at the JCC was giving bridge lessons, and she said, that's fun, I like this. Dad and I are gonna learn bridge. Who we're gonna practice with, but Jay and Gary, and we did. And Mom developed this love for bridge, and it never left her. As a matter of fact, Evelyn Sugarman, thanks for being here today, taking time out. Bob as well. Well, Mom had a little kind of problem back in 1990. She developed Epstein-Barr syndrome, and she really didn't get out of bed. So I said, Mom, I'm going to send you a computer down with some free shareware bridge game. Well, that transitioned to Mom being stuck with computers. She was addicted to computers ever since. So I won't go into all the stories, but today she still used 3 iPhones and 1 iPad till the day she died. And she ripped, she would download music, share photos, send photos. It was a great thing, and she could communicate and use all her video things for video Zoom with the family. She was really lucky in 1983 traveling with my dad one of his last months, and they were on the Love Boat. I can tell you, if you ever want to see Mom and Dad in the Love Boat scene, they were in an episode with Engelbert Humperdinck, Kirstie Alley, Parker Stevenson, Joan Collins, and they were thrilled. They had a good life together, and they gave us a good life too. But because Mom couldn't have private gatherings when she was younger, and she had this loss of family, it became so important that after the loss of her friend David Wittenstein, that I kind of felt I had the loss of the family as well. And this is the first time in my life that I was single at the same time my mother was single. And I said, Mom, your friends are here in Chicago half the year, you're alone, you lost 20 pounds, it's not good, you're having issues, come on, come to Chicago, and I'm going to show you Chicago. And with some of the help of the introductions I had, the lovely couple, Holly and Joel Scher, just opened up their heart and their home to me as a single person, and to my mother also. And David was there before he passed, but there was this wonderful feeling of family, and I never thought I would ever meet someone who had children named Daryl and Brett besides myself. But it's the way it was. At any rate, the gatherings ended, and I was lucky to be introduced to that wonderful lady, Kathy Brown, who had parties, and I said, this is fun. My mom was there, Ann Gerber was there. Mom got into the newspapers, we were photographed, we went to the Drake Hotel, we went here, we went there. Mom liked gatherings. There was no shortage of parties, there was no shortage of activity. There was no shortage of her friends. The Sternfelds were here. Nita was here. Wonderful. And that just lasted. Today is the 10th anniversary of my mother moving into her, this was her first day 10 years ago in the Mather Hotel, Mather Retirement Community. And Brady helped move her in, right over there. And that was the start of wonderful things. She was part of the family there. She was a part of the family with me and the Shares and their extended family. And it has been, I was so glad that Lee could experience all these wonderful things. And I'm glad that she has all this wonderful family here today with her. God bless you, Mom. You blessed us. Hope God blesses all of us, now and forever. Thank you.
Beautiful. Anybody else gonna speak?
Sydney, do you want to say something?
Sidney Friedman, I'm a friend of Gary's, friend of the family. And I'll just tell one very quick story. There are many stories emblematic of Lee, but just one. Speaking of the parties Gary brought up, Gary would hold these magnificent parties. As many of you know, he lived in these show homes. And every couple of years he moved to a new one and then another one. And one of the show homes was the Oscar Mayer mansion. Yes, the Oscar Mayer for the hot dogs. Not kosher, Rabbi, sorry about that. And, but he decided one year to have this grand Super Bowl party at this home, and this was 3 stories high with not just the regular set of stairs, it's these very tall ceilings, so there were extra stairs to get all the way to the 3rd level, and Gary had, I think, some 100 to 150 people over. I think it was intended for 25 people, but it grew to 150 with Lee's associations and so forth, and Lee was 90 years old at this point. Okay, and she had just gone through a little bit of a surgery, having a fall some 6 months earlier, and he had televisions on each level, so you could watch the Super Bowl no matter where you were. And somehow by halftime, the party had all migrated up to the top level. And I'm up there, and all of a sudden, I see Lee up there. There was no elevator, and I'm looking at it, and I know magic, so I'm thinking this had to be some kind of she transported herself, a Star Trek beam me up kind of thing. I said, Lee, how did you get up here? And she looks at me like a dummy. She goes, I took the stairs. And not only did she take the stairs, but she's holding a tray of food. And then she says, this is my 3rd time up here. I noticed there wasn't enough food. Right? So, and now as I'm hearing what's going on here, I understand this grit and determination all came from her the unfortunate circumstance of living in Nazi Germany. And so I am pretty sure that right now Lee is in heaven and God is saying, how did you get up here? I took the stairs. So, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Rest in peace, Lee, and you don't have to take the stairs anymore.
That was great. Hard acts to follow. Beautiful, beautiful words. Traditionally, we'll share some words from the Tanakh, the Bible, the Holy Scriptures, and I thought these words from the book of Proverbs, Mishlei, are most appropriate for today. Traditionally, we recite these words every Friday night at the Shabbos table, blessing the women of our home. And I recite these as a blessing for Lee. Eshes chayomim savrachot mipenini mikra, vatach bale bala v'shala lo yasar, v'lasuk tov v'lo ra, kol yimei chayav, darshat samar fishim atas v'cheres kataha, Haisakani asocher mimerchak tavilach ma, Vatakam deod laila v'titenter, v'vesa v'chovim naroseha, zama masada v'tikacheyu mikri chapel natakarem, chagrobios masnea vatam l'izroseha, tamakito sachra lo yichbel b'layim, v'rindeshuk v'chishor, v'chapel tamchufalach, kapa parsiyani v'yadeshuk l'evim sufes mishalek yigolesa v'hushanim, Arvadi Masa Sallah, Sheish Ragavan Mavusha, Noda Bashari Bala, Vishivto, Zidnei Aretz, Sani nos sabatim kor v'chagor nas nalaknani. Oz vador levu shabbatis lach leyom acharon. Pia pascha b'chachma v'soras chased alu shonas. Pia lichos peso v'chamatzus lo sochel. Kamu v'nem Yeshua ba'ala v'yahalala. Rabos banu sasochayu v'yatalisa kulana. Sheker achein v'vayofi. Yishayiras Adonai Sisaro Tinula Mikriyada Nihalua Bashari Masa. I translated a portion of these words. A woman of valor who can find. Her worth is far above rubies. The heart of her husband trusts in her, nothing shall be lack. She renders him good and not evil all the days of her life. She opens her hand to the needy and extends her hand to the poor. She is robed in strength and dignity and cheerfully faces whatever may come. She opens her mouth with wisdom. Her tongue is guided by kindness. She tends the affairs of her household, eats not the bread of idleness. Her children come forward and bless her husband too. And they praise her, saying, many women have done superbly, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain. But a God-fearing woman is much to be praised. Placed before her the fruit of her hands. Wherever people gather, her deeds will always speak her praise. Amen. Please stand for the memorial prayer. El Malay Rachamim, Shochein Lamamim. Amasei Nuchana Fana Kafi Ashkin of the Malos Kadoshim and Tom Kazorakia. Asirim Es Nishmas, Leah Bas Yosef, Shahalcha, Leolama. Avroshim Ismail Bas Cross Nishmas, Amagan Tem Yuchasa. Anabala Rachamim, Hastira Beseskan of Yomamim. Utzor Vitzor Chaim Es Nishmasa. Adonai Nachalasa. Sanuach B'Shalom Mamishkava V'Nomar Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, to the soul of Lee Hamburg Kahn, of blessed memory, who is gone to her eternal home. O massive mercy, beseech you to remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that she performed in the land of the living. May her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life, for Hashem, God is her portion. May she rest in peace, and may her name always be remembered for a blessing. Let us all say, Amen. If you'll please be seated. Martin, our funeral director, is going to come forward from Mitzvah Memorial Funerals. He's going to give us direction